I've spent a lot of time going to websites such as Twitter and Reddit, where I don't typically spend an immense amount of time looking for information about who all is going to the media tour, so that I can go get information from those people. Because more so than a sponsored event, where it might just be, hey, is the person I want to support being supported by that event? Should I take part in it? And all of that. It becomes a much bigger question of I want that information. And so this is a great opportunity to like meet new creators and all that. So I put that video up. And one of the things I noticed some misinformation being posted about was some misunderstandings around belts. It looks like people saw some headlines that belts were being deleted and were making some assumptions and then spreading those as facts. And once the assumptions are 3 or 4 layers deep, it got wildly inaccurate. So let's start at the beginning. Let's work our way through what belts are, what they do and do not do in this game. And then we will talk about why they are removing them. And once they are removed, what are you going to do with your belts? Because they're not deleting them. So belts are a non-cosmetic stat item. That's all they are. They're on our character. Let's jump in game real quick and let's take a look. So my character, obviously not wearing a belt in this glamour, but if I switch to my gathering gear, she is wearing a lovely belt right here. If I actually open up my gear, your belts are most commonly done as part of your waist right here, or as tied to the pants slot. The belt itself is non-cosmetic. So what it does do is it offers stats, as well as some belts, not all belts, offer the ability to equip materia to them. And so you can see that there are two materia slots on here, and you can, with of course crafted gear and things like that, sometimes you end up with things that have more materia. That's getting too deep into this. What happens to materia is a much bigger topic. So then the question becomes, why are they doing this? Why are they getting rid of belts at all? Why would they ever delete anything? This makes no sense. Well, Final Fantasy it's founded on a lot of really old code at this point, and so it's not a perfect game. So belts right now are stored in what's called an armory system. Because we have the ability to play every job, all 31 jobs between our battle jobs and our crafters and gatherers, we end up with our gear being stored in a system called the armory system, in this armory chest. And the armory chest has 35 slots on every slot, on all of the tabs tied to gear and weapons, both secondary weapons, which not all classes use a secondary weapon, as well as primary weapons. Okay? So, every single slot in the game, if you have all 31 jobs, soon to be 33, if they were all at different level ranges and wanted unique gear, you would already be pushing up against a full armory chest. But if you start to keep gear around, like I have in some of these slots, like my helm, where I have this for jobs, these are level 80 pieces for jobs I do not have at 80 yet. Or if you have sometimes multiple sets, where for tanking, I have a set for when I am inside a special zone that is separate from the set I have right here, then you very quickly run out of room, especially in the slots like rings, where you get 35 slots, even though we wear a left and right ring. And in primary weapons, where thanks to the relic system, we might want to carry multiple weapons, because I am currently working through my armor relic system. The gatherers just got it this time, so all but Blue Mage now have a relic, and I actually have my weapon over here that is higher stats, and the lower stat one that I am currently going through the upgrade process on. And so you very, very quickly realize that you have 61 weapons minus the one equipped for 35 slots. And so you have a huge issue. So, you know, as soon as you have all max levels in a roll, they share gear. So all of my tanks actually wear the exact same gear. So really, this is a big problem for people that are still in the process of leveling, with the exception of primary and rings. That is a problem for a huge number of players. So by deleting belts without increasing system performance or recoding anything in the game, they are taking these 35 slots and they are splitting them, with 15 slots going to primary weapons and 15 slots going to rings, with the 5 remaining slots going somewhere we don't know. We assume they're going to soul crystals, which technically, if you have every single one in the game, you have one equipped. And so if I take this one off, if I go to a job that doesn't have one, Then I have 3 remaining slots, and with the crafter system, there are crafting soul crystals that you can get 3 of, the specialist zone. So there are people that already have full soul crystal bags, and we expect to get a soul crystal with both Reaper and Sage, which of course would push us over the top. So we're already at an issue in there. We assume the other 5 will go there. So now the question becomes, what about my current belts? What is going to happen to my current belts? Well, if it's in a slot that's being removed, meaning in an equipped slot, in an armory chest slot under this tab, or on one of your retainers, where your retainers here actually have their own set of gear, then those slots are going to go away, and so that gear is not going to be in a place that it can be held. So those are going to get moved off to what's called the Calamity Salvager. They will not be deleted. If that gear was crafted, then it will actually still show who crafted it. So it will still show right here, this says my character's name because I made this ring, I made this weapon, and it tells me right here, this was made by Jane Doe. If I buy it off the market board, like I did some of these, I can see this was made by somebody whose name I don't know. It will still remember that. It will also retain any materia on it. You see I have some materia on these, it will retain that. So my piece of gear will go to the Calamity Salvager if it isn't located in a belt slot, and it will be kept in whatever state it was pulled out of there. So you're not losing anything. If it's in a slot that can still hold a belt, meaning any inventory on either your in your Chocobo saddlebag, in your inventory, or in your retainer's inventory, if I have a belt in there, if I take one of these belts and I put it here, if November 19th rolls around, it'll be exactly where I left it. There's no reason it can't be in that slot. It'll be left right there. So if you don't want to go to the Calamity Salvager, simply take all of your belts before you log out for the first time before Endwalker goes live, and take all your belts off of what's equipped and out of your armory chest, off your retainers, and it'll all be in your inventory. You can just skip that step altogether, but if you do nothing, you will lose nothing. So just to make that abundantly clear, they will be exactly the item ID and exactly the state you left them. So what will we lose? Because we will lose stuff. Well, first of all, there is something called the Spirit Bond system. If you look very closely at the tooltip, below condition, your repair condition, there is a Spirit Bond, which is a form of experience that you build up on a piece of gear as you use it. In the bottom right here, when these dots turn white, that means your Spirit Bond's at 100%. It used to be that Spirit Bond destroyed the gear if you interacted with the system. Now you don't. So now you can go to actions, you can go to general actions, and you can have a materia extraction somewhere on your bar. Mine's right here. And when these hit 100%, like my Bracelet of Gathering is about to, I can extract a materia. Well, since these will no longer be equipable gear, they will no longer track your experience. And so if you have Spirit Bond at 100%, you should always be extracting the materia immediately so that you can start building towards the next materia. But you should definitely do this before the 19th because belts will no longer have a Spirit Bond stat. Therefore, if they were at 100% Spirit Bond, you just missed out on a free materia. The materia level obviously being based on the item level of the item in question. So the higher level belt that you have at 100% Spirit Bond, the more valuable of something that you theoretically lost, give or take, kinda. But you should be doing that as you go on all pieces of gear, which is why I don't have a Spirit Bonded piece to show you, because you should always be doing that immediately. It's free money. So it used to destroy the gear, but it doesn't now. Now, with it also not being a slot anymore, on the market board, all items are filtered. So this little slot here is going away, which means you will no longer have the ability to buy or sell belts on the market board. So that means even if they are not market prohibited, like all of these are going to be, which is the bottom statement in a tooltip, even if they're not market prohibited, belts will now all be market prohibited. Whether or not the tooltip says it, I don't know how they're going to deal with that. But all belts will no longer be something that can be bought or sold on the market board, regardless of the belt. They will just go away as that. So people who are still buying high-level belts, I assume, are clearing last-minute raids, but otherwise there's no reason to be buying belts this late in the expansion, as they are on their way out. We will also lose the ability to turn these in for supply missions and leaves. Even if you pick up a leave beforehand, a crafting leave that says make me a belt, and you hold on to it into Endwalker, that NPC is going to be smart enough not to take the belt from you in Endwalker. So be done with any belts that you want to use for leaves beforehand for any of your crafters. And over here, as I run to my grand company, yours may be located in a different capital city, depending on whether or not you are a twin adder, like myself. And so as I run over here, there are two systems here. There is supply and provisioning, which is a way to level your crafters and gatherers as well as get good seals by making things that are relevant. These are no longer going to ever have belts as the requested item, so you will no longer need them for that. It's not going to appear, so it's not that you can't turn them in, it's that they literally don't care. So these will no longer ever be present in the supply missions. They're going away. However, you will still be able to turn them in for expert delivery, which if I show, you can see would turn in for seals. They will still be turn-inable for seals. Keep your armory chest items hidden, because otherwise you might accidentally get rid of those, always. As a last remaining thing that they will not be able to do is if you have a coffer that has a belt located in it, that will be removed from that coffer's loot table. So if, for example, you have a belt coffer and all that can drop is belts, that coffer will no longer be able to be opened and give you belts. And so if I hop down here to some of my retainers where I keep just extra coffers lying around, these armor coffers, if these were belt coffers, they would now be empty. So use up any coffers that you expect to get belts out of before November 19th. That's the last of the things that you will not be able to do. Okay? Now, what will you still be able to do with all these old belts? Because we're going to keep them all. They're all going to be in our inventory. Well, you can always delete them or vendor them, and vendor items for gear in this game is like a wonderful 100 gil. Please don't ever do that. First of all, you will still be able to retrieve any materia on them, even if they go to the Calamity Salvager. So if I was done with this gear, I would want to pull the materia off, or at least take a stab at pulling it off, because there's a failure rate in some cases. I would want that materia back. So retrieve your materia before you do anything else. You will next of all be able to do those supply missions that I just showed you. And last of all, you'll be able to use desynthesis. Desynthesis meaning after you've leveled your crafters to level 30, you have the ability to break gear down into its crafting components. That also has a menu. So I oftentimes keep that menu present on some of my bars. And so you have desynthesis. So I'll desynth this fish here, sure. And that breaks down. And then you get whatever you get. So I just got 100 gil token out of that. And gear will break down into its crafting components. So that will still be there. So hopefully that in a concise video that is only about belts, that is all this is about, will help you know if you want Grand Company seals, turn them into your Grand Company for expert delivery. If you want to desynth them, get your crafting materials. And the only belt remaining in question is the Eureka Speed belt. They are making a Eureka Speed ring. You'll be able to turn Eureka Speed belt in for a Eureka Speed ring. If you'd like to, and that's it. The stats, they can balance the stats. They can deal with this. They're already doing a stat squish anyway. I do still have some questions. Like, for example, when we're gearing out in raids and we're gearing out in the amount of tomestones we use, are we just going to gear out faster now that we have one less item to deal with? And what are they doing with materia? Which is just a general question I have at all times. But obviously, with one more piece of gear being removed that can hold materia, I have questions about, well, what do I do? Are we just going to have less materia available? Because we already, in my opinion, generate too much materia in this game for the fact that we don't consume it enough ways. So giving people a reason to buy even less makes me have questions about that. But overall, the stats are going to be fine. Our pants are not going to fall down. They weren't held up by these invisible stat sticks anyway. It's totally fine. The world is fine. Your armory chest got better. Endwalker's going to be good. The headlines may be scary. Deleting belts for any of us longtime players is good news. It's fine. Everything's going to be the exact same as it was. Kinda.